Chop it down. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down.
I just appreciate everybody
Down,
watching.
set,
Man.
watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Look, I'm a little uncoordinated. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds right quick. Hold on right quick, player. Wait. Is Montel good? I know he's still setting up. I should have waited a little bit to get him on the show. Hell you doing over here with that goddamn all right, bet. You got the little do-rag on, man. You got your waves under them things, man.
Man, I'm trying. Right now. I'm trying to get them back right. I'm about to get a haircut, so you know I gotta lay it down before I get the haircut, get it right.
Oh, so you ain't got them Jones ain't swimming right now.
Relax, bro. I wouldn't even put it on camera right now. That's what I'm saying right now.
Nah, I feel that, man. Welcome back to another Dakota. Don't you do it? Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Dive podcast, provided to you by 214 Media. I'm your host, Mual, Coach Mual, Hen Dog Mual, all that good stuff, man. I think I got the good man. Is this bourbon? Is this bourbon Hefe, or is this? I felt like you just popping the bottle right now.
And you know this, man. Nah, let me stop. I got some tequila.
Tequila. Okay, tequila Hefe.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all drink Terramana, out there, but this is some good tequila. Everybody be sipping the what's the stuff the kids drink these days?
That just blew me because yeah.
Why can't we think of the name of it right now?
I had it before you said that. I'm blaming you.
Damn, I'm blaming. I feel so old right now. But the drink I'm talking about. It was real popular. Everybody was drinking it over the summer.
Oh my God, bro. I can't believe we having this moment.
No bullshit. No,
watch this. Hold on, wait. Watch this. I'm a Google famous tequila. I bet you it'll pop up. Famous tequila.
Why can't I think of that shit right now?
Watch this. Here we go. Casamigos.
Casamigos, bro. Like, why couldn't I think of Casamigos? I was really drawing the blank, bro. I could not think of that shit. But yeah.
No, that don't hurt. And which one did you got?
Terramana. So Terramana is a really good tequila. I had another tequila for homecoming. Man, the lady,
there you go right here. Terramana.
Boy, that thing real. But no, I think I had Terramana for homecoming. But it's a few different tequilas that don't got like big names. Man.
Yeah, like Espolano. That's the junk that I be on, bro.
Yeah, tell me about. I think that's what I had. Look, I was so drunk I don't even remember.
That junk.
I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Everybody would, bro. Boy, I tapped out. I was talking about this on all 32 side. Boy, I tapped out at like 7:00. Like, I mean, I was out till like 3 a.m., but I don't remember nothing after 7. That shit was crazy, bro. Long ass night, dog.
Yeah, I'm glad I caught it at night early. I went home at like 10, and I was asleep at like 10:30, blacked out. That was the best decision I ever made. I was able to wake up the next morning and have a day. You know what I'm saying?
I think so. Hawk, I see you in this thing checking in. He said the A and AJ's name went from astounding to amazing job, Heineken. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're gonna see AJ give Heineken no credit no time soon. I think we're past that point. But let's get the administrative items out of the way right quick before we continue. If you are new to the Trap or Dive podcast, and make sure that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, man, it's truly appreciated. On the Twitch side, same thing, man. If you are new and you just checking in, man, hit that follow button and tap in, man. It's definitely appreciated on that side as well. Interview, JD McKissick. That's official. I said the name. When I put the name out there, it's officially official. I ain't gonna BS you. But JD McKissick interview is gonna be coming out, if not tomorrow, Thursday, on the Trap or Dive YouTube channel. It'll definitely be out tomorrow on Hawks Haven Podcast. So you'll be able to hear from JD and check in with him. More so a lot of real conversation. A tad bit touched on the current Commanders, but yeah, man, really good conversation with JD and his team about this Q collar equipment, things like that. So overall, check that out. That'll be out tomorrow and Thursday. Do I got everything covered right now? Morning show will be on tomorrow. I'm gonna go ahead and muscle through that John too. This shit is hurting, but I'm gonna definitely have to go to urgent care. For those who know, I'm dealing with some type of upper shoulder, above shoulder situation with my body, and I don't know what the hell it is, but urgent care is probably the next step. But we gonna knock that thing out regardless tomorrow morning, man. So Washington's Commander Morning Show tomorrow morning, film session, and all that good stuff. Montel, the Commanders won 2 straight. And since you are new or you haven't been on here in a little minute, I'm gonna get your overall take on this mob. 2 games in a row. Now I want the people to know too, before I even hand you the floor first. You and the way you talk on game days, bruh, it's like Nick, bruh. It's a feather in the wind, man. You just going wherever that don't take you, bruh.
And I can't even help it. I've tried. I ain't gonna lie to you, Jamal. That's one of the things I give you credit for is you most of the time, because you do it sometimes, but most of the time you do a good job of waiting until everything plays out until you like officially, have a comment. Or
I like to have my fun though. I do. I have my little fun.
I'm a fan to the fullest, bro. When we up, I'm talking. When we down, I'm pissed. I'm
everybody.
Everybody. But that's just me being a fan. Typically, the next day, after a day or so, I'm able to really sit back and analyze the game without, being a fan in that sense. But during the games, oh yeah, I'm all in. Whatever's going on, that's where I'm at.
All right. Well, I mean, the floor is first off, AJ, it's just checking in, man. What's going on, big dog? How you feeling today?
Yo, what's good? I'm trying to connect this thing to my damn AirPods. It ain't working.
Who else was trying to do that? I think Rob was trying to do that.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We hear you.
Yeah, I think it's going through my laptop speaker. But yeah, other than that, man, I'm cool, man. How y'all?
I'm good, bro. We were just talking about how the ebbs and flows of being a Commanders fan. Montel was going through it a little bit this past Sunday. Through these text messages. I remember that first half. Like AJ, we in a separate group chat, but at that first half, that boy Montel was on one. He wasn't playing, but when Washington took the lead, he was yeah, you couldn't tell that we was ever losing.
But you know what's crazy? As a fan, tell me this isn't true. As a fan, you have a sense of when your team is like gonna win the game or gonna lose. Like you have a sense of like, damn, we don't got nothing going, and it's over. And then you have a sense of like when stuff gets to going, you have a sense of like, man, hey, we rolling, and it's gonna be hard to stop us. That was kind of how I felt in the second half against Green Bay. It was like there was a point in the game, I want to say like late in the third quarter, and we was moving the ball, we was running well. And Heineke, even though he wasn't being Peyton Manning or anything like that, he was just complimenting the run game. And one of the things I said this early in the season, and I regret it to this day because I said our offense is going to, give us a chance to win every game. Right now,
he said I regret. I know where he was going.
I regret ever saying that. But right now, the way our defense is playing, it gives us a chance to win against anybody. But I'm gonna save some room for reservations only because. Hey, he said we live.
Are you on the air?
A little bit. I do have my reservations. I ain't gonna lie to you, AJ. I have my reservations. I thought that Bears win was. When people say it felt like a loss, it really did. But Sunday felt good, and I'm gonna go ahead and just celebrate because I'm not sure how many more of those we got in us. I'm gonna just be honest.
What you getting happy for though?
AJ,
like,
what is it? Hey, look,
AJ,
with everybody
so
pissed off.
Like, I don't understand why what are you being optimistic about? Like, I'm just confused. Like,
I like to see fight in my teams, man. Like, we not going outside, and that's the the first few weeks, I feel like we went out sad. We went out sad against the Eagles, against the Cowboys. We was in Dallas. And I'm like, yo, we just went out sad. And I like to see my team have some fight, have some competitiveness to them. And you know, everybody picks on our mob. The national media, I feel like they throw a little extra salt in there and a little extra pepper. Like I was watching the Thursday night game, and Tony Gonzalez was like, "Man, this is the JV league of football." And I'm like, "Yo, I'm tired of motherfuckers going super ham on my squad. Like, man, have some fight in y'all." And I feel like these last couple of weeks, they didn't look like the JV team of the NFL. I mean, granted,
because they also playing some bums, like.
But
these are the same teams. These are the same teams that the Giants beat. You know what I mean? These are the same teams that the rest of the NFC East is beating up on. So a win is a win is a win, bro. Like you got to give credit when it's due. But look, a lot of people also don't believe in the Giants either. Like
I don't.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean I'm not a gambler, but like in Vegas, weren't they just underdogs in that last game against the Jaguars?
Yeah, they're 3-point dogs against the Jaguars.
But they won though.
Yeah, people ain't believing in the Giants. Like I don't even think people really believe in the Cowboys. They just know that defense right now is clicking. It's elite, but like they really don't have no offensive weapons. Honestly, it's just more so that the defense is creating turnovers and kind of like the same thing that you would want Washington's defense to do. But overall, it's like. I don't know. Everybody's perspective is different. I just feel like
league, though. Look at the way the league is going, AJ.
No,
like,
the league is really all over the place, and I said it from the jump. Like you really not gonna know who's for real until after the halfway mark, and we're about to be there. Like we're about to be at the halfway mark where you'll know who's really real. Like take even the Kansas City Chiefs game versus the 49ers. Like they got spanked. You feel me? Like they got spanked in that game. So, yeah, I mean, for me as a Commanders fan, I will say that I'm just looking forward to the end of the year to what will happen. And when I say that, I'm just curious to see, are they going to make a change at head coach? And if they don't make a change at head coach, will they then possibly make a change at coordinators? Because I feel like, you know, Jack Del Rio's kind of being let off what they say again?
Give Jack no credit. You ain't gonna give Jack no credit, AJ.
They not creating turnovers, bro. Like they still not creating turnovers. Like I want to see more turnovers out of this defense. Like that's a key for me. Like I could care less if you last in the rankings in pass defense, rush defense. But if you're creating turnovers, that changes a lot. And it makes you look at a team a bit differently, and they're still not doing that. But you know, they're letting him off the hook for right now. Well, the fans are at least, and of course, Ron, that's his boy. So he's like, "Yeah, I was impressed. We were getting there with 4. No shit, because their offensive line is just as shit as your offensive line. So why would you need to send additional blitzes? Like, it's almost like they don't look at tape. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Like. Nobody has been sending blitzes against the Green Bay Packers. They've been sending just 4 and getting home. And still, Aaron Rodgers getting the ball out quick, and them dudes dropping passes left and right.
Trey, what's going on with you, man? How you feeling today?
Man, I'm good. I'm actually about to, watch this Wizards game while we doing the show.
Live?
I'm about to say, handle your business, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Like 2 comments in here.
Yeah, we live. But yeah, man, I know that who the Wizards got tonight, matter of fact.
Oh, they're playing the Pistons. It's a little sorry game, you know what I'm saying? I'm just having it on just for leisure, leisure time.
Do you believe in the Wizards?
No, Montel, no, I don't believe in the Wizards.
Hell no.
They got to show me something first, man. You know what I'm saying? Actually, they're like the Commanders right now. Like you really have to, prove it to me over a sustained period before I'm really buying in.
So here's
my bad. I was gonna say when they did that lineup introduction at the Wizards home game Friday, I was like, who the fuck are these dudes, bro? like I ain't know like 85% of the team, bro. I was like, what has happened in the NBA? Like
that's like the Lakers. The Lakers roster the same. You look at them like, who are these dudes?
Where was I at? Oh, one more thing. administrative item. I don't know how I forgot this. This is incredible. Pete Hailey is joining us tonight of NBC Sports Washington. He'll join us at the tail end of the show. We'll get to chop it up with him for a quick second, get his thoughts on the team, and things like that. Outlaw, I see you, big dog. What's going on with you? All right. So here we go. There was a couple things on the agenda before Pete came through, and just more so a general conversation. We kind of touched on it at this point now. There was a tweet from con artist Nuke, and I found this, and I was like, I'm not going to respond to it. I'm going to save it for the show because he's not the only one I saw tweet this. And Dre, you're going to be familiar with this one because you corresponded with him. He had said, did the Commanders beat a quote-unquote good team, quote-unquote good Bears team, or are y'all going to move the goalposts again and say the Patriots just suck? So I think this was like after the Monday night game, if not this morning. But either way, it was after the game, period. And obviously we know the Bears just beat on the Patriots, and I think dubbed them 33-14, I believe, or 30, whatever. They got close to doubling them. So I'm gonna hand this question to y'all, but I'll take the first stab at it. Just hearing it, I think sometimes because when people don't understand or people forget that it is a week-to-week league. Like it always, at the end of the day, it's a week-to-week league. And to be honest with you, Newt, you my boy, I still like if you look at how the Patriots have been playing this year, what would suggest you to think that the Patriots are a really good team? They haven't had the quarterback position solved. And while the defense is good, like you can't win games just off the strength of your running game. Like I think that there's a lot going on, and I'm being very specific about the Patriots itself. But when you expand everything in terms of the win against the Bears and then the win against the Packers, that game against the Bears was abysmal, and you were, from a team standpoint, like you was less than 10% on your third down conversions in the previous two games. Between the Bears and the Titans, you were converting on a less than 10% clip. You weren't getting in the end zone. You were struggling to score. So I think it's important when we talk about these conversations, just because, you know, Washington's on a 2-game win streak, you have to take everything into perspective. I think that what they did against the Packers, offensively, they turned things. Well, to be clear, Taylor Heineke turned things around. And because everything else was clicking for the most part, everything else was clicking. Taylor Heineke turned things around. The offense became more effective as the game went along. But defensively, like it was really much like a blood in the water type of thing for Jack Del Rio and his unit. And they executed and didn't let a Green Bay Packers team come alive against them. They weren't the get right team this week. So like there's a nuanced conversation when you talk about, did the Commanders beat good teams? Because that emotion and that the Commanders aren't going to get any love for a 2-game win streak, I don't think that they should. I don't think we're at that point yet. I do think that there could be credit down the line. I do think that, you know, if you talk about beating Indianapolis and either Philadelphia or Minnesota, then you're talking about even a further conversation into what the Commanders are. But right now, I don't think we should be like, why isn't Washington getting any credit for beating two teams that weren't that good? And that's where I'm at. Fellas, I'm gonna hand the floor back over to you. Dre, if you want to take the first stab at it, since you interacted with Noop on that conversation, you can definitely do so.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Moss, a lot of nuance involved with that conversation. I had interacted with it because I did think it was funny how, you know, he had phrased it. But I mean, from an extent, I get where he's coming from. He's right. I mean, in a sense that, you know, it's a lot of people don't want to be objective when it comes to the team, whether it's a good thing and or a bad thing. You know, either way, you have someone on a side. So a lot of times people will look at Washington, no matter what they do, if they win a game, they'll just try to, you know, dismiss it as, oh, they only won because this happened, or they only won because, you know, this team was this, you know, and that happens quite often. Now I'm with you in the sense, Mual, on the fact that, yeah, we shouldn't be praising Washington for just winning these 2 games because, I mean, you're still, 3-4? You're not at 500 yet. You still got things to prove. You started the season off abysmal. So right now, you still have a lot to prove. So we shouldn't be lauding them for that, but we also shouldn't necessarily dismiss when they do, win or something. I mean, that's the whole point, and that's the reason why I interacted with his tweet.
Yeah, I agree. Like the winning part. Like at the end of the day, from a fan perspective, I guess you can feel the way you want to feel. Like I know how I feel. I'm not a fan of this coaching staff, but I cannot on a week to week basis. Like it's hard for me to sit here, for me personally, like understand that I'm hoping these guys, like it's just hard, bro. Like the loss was what they are, but when you winning, like even still, it's confusing, and that's kind of where I'm at a loss for words and struggling to find my words because it's like these 2 wins haven't been that convincing, but it's like at the end of the day, you keep yourself alive so long as you stick in it, and at 3-4, I believe they're 1 game out of the eighth seed or something like that. So like they're doing their part and they're trying their best, but at the end of the day, they got to keep showing something. And
I was just gonna say one more thing on that. For me, I guess the most encouraging thing for me, I'm not at the point where I'm ready to praise them and say they're so great or anything, but I'm more encouraged that they're showing a pulse now. And this is something that I wanted them to show early in the season. And when they were losing the way they were losing to like the Eagles and the Cowboys, they showed no pulse whatsoever. It was just the games weren't competitive. Like I said, they didn't look like an NFL team out there. And that was just embarrassing. Like, I mean, no matter where you stand on the totem pole, you don't want to see your team just go out and look like that. Now, I mean, if you are going to look like that over a period of time, obviously we're going to, hop on the tank bandwagon. But it's just week to week, you put in time to say, I'm going to watch this team, and they show no effort. Or, like I said, not competitive, no pulse. And now they're finally doing it. So, I mean, I'm going to, see if that's something they can sustain or not. But, I mean, I do hate that it takes this long to show a pulse, but they're showing one right now.
I'm about to say either Montel or AJ. Y'all got the floor.
I'm going to let you go ahead, AJ. Because I'm going to sprinkle some positivity in. I already know you finna go hang. I already know.
I mean, no, some people saying a win is a win. Like I said, last week, I think it takes courage and understanding to understand, to acknowledge that your team is not in a position to even compete on that level, like to the next level. Like you should know that, hey, we should probably start looking at not necessarily rebuilding, but we have to get this team at a better place because everybody else in the division is doing good, whereas we're like trying to fight to come back and do what? Like, what are they? Are they trying to make the playoffs? Like, I don't believe that's a real option. And if they go to the playoffs, they're gonna get spanked. So, Carolina made some moves in the recent weeks or whatever to get some draft equity, but at the same token, they ended up beating Tampa Bay. I mean, those are situations that you just can't help. You're on your 4th, 5th quarterback and you winning games. Maybe that kind of speaks to your coaching, or maybe Tampa Bay is really that bad right now offensively and defensively. But I just feel like with Washington, I mean, they should be in a position where they're competitive in all games at this point under the tenureship of Ron Rivera. So I'm not going to give kudos to beating, certain teams, especially like the Bears, the Packers. I didn't know that they were that bad until over this weekend because I don't watch a whole bunch of Green Bay Packers games. But, at the end of the day, fans are going to lean one way or the other. They're like you said, Montel, earlier, and Mual, you were touching on how he was going crazy in the text because of the play early in the game from Taylor Heineke. And then once they started winning, he was like, okay, cool. Like my mob out here doing their thing, but your mob's still shit. Like our mob is still shit. At the end of the day, it's just that he got better throughout the game. And fortunately, Green Bay wasn't able to take advantage of the opportunities that he kept giving to them. He kept giving them layups. Like if they took the layups that he was giving them, it would have been a blowout. Like Green Bay wouldn't have had to even do anything offensively. I just feel like they're hitting a mark in their schedule where they're going against really bad teams that we didn't think would be necessarily this bad. Green Bay in particular, I think we knew Bears was going to be bad. We thought Colts would be very competitive within the NFL overall and the AFC. They now bench Matt Ryan. Jonathan Taylor hasn't really done much, especially from last year. And then after they play the Colts, don't they play the Falcons?
No, he played
after the Colts.
Vikings.
They got
The Vikings.
Oh, they play the Vikings, yeah. So they're gonna get back. They're gonna get back to getting dogged.
You rooting for Kirk in that game, AJ?
It's not even about Kirk. That boy Justin Jefferson is gonna be all over the place, and it's gonna be a long day for that boy Wild Goose. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, fans want to win, but I just say, remember what happens when you continue to win these games, and especially when it comes to draft position. Win a couple games 2 years ago put you out of position to possibly draft Michael Parsons, who dropped in the draft. Like winning 1 or 2 additional more games took you out of position of getting a generational talent. Like, we're talking about dogs, something that this team lacks.
Wait, so are you suggesting that they tank?
I'm suggesting not necessarily a tank. I guess I don't never want to say tank because these are professionals at the end of the day. Like, they're trying to make their money. So it's kind of hard to tank in the NFL unless you just out there putting 4-string players out there. But in some way, you need to be mindful of your future and maybe not try as hard to possibly win and be competitive in these games. Like,
you're suggesting that losing is what's best for this mob in particular.
Yes, that is what I'm suggesting. I feel like them losing is the best thing that could possibly happen for this team.
Do you think Ron would think that? Or do you think that would be fair for Ron
because
to think that?
Ron believed in Carson Wentz, so that just tells you alone that this person ain't even thinking straight. Like, they don't even know the game that they watching, because even the strategy go ahead.
If he tanks, I'm just saying, if he tanks AJ, he gets fired. What incentive does he have to tank for this team, not knowing that he will be safe after this season? I mean, I get it from a fan standpoint.
See, the thing is, I think that Ron doesn't believe that he'll get fired irregardless, even if he had a poor record. He's that arrogant in himself that he doesn't believe that he would get fired.
He slipped up and said, "People want me to get fired."
Like,
I heard him.
Yeah, it was like 50 Cent was at the podium. You feel me? Like, it was crazy, but he doesn't even think like that, and that's a good mindset to have. You feel me? And I really don't know if he's gonna get fired or not, but I honestly think at the end of the day, the best thing for this franchise would be to put themselves in the best position to draft an elite player, and just try to build off of that energy next year, because we already know that the answer at quarterback is not on this roster once again. The free agency market at quarterback is not steep. I mean, now you got Mac Jones being floated out there. God, I hope they don't try to acquire him. But at the end of the day, the more wins that you acquire, the harder of a position you're putting yourself in to be able to acquire a quarterback in the draft. And yeah, some teams have moved up in the past to go get their guy, but this team, I don't feel, has the luxury to, send multiple ones or twos up to go get a quarterback in this class of the draft. And I don't even really think of a quarterback in this draft is worth that, honestly. So that's my perspective. I'm just thinking long term, whereas like some people thinking short term, they happy for these wins. I know guys on the team, they had their little victory Monday. They was out in the streets Sunday night. Cool. But as someone who loves the team and has been a diehard fan since I was born, I just want to see them get themselves in a better position to be a competitive team for the long run without Ron Rivera and company.
I think what you say has a lot of validity to it, because if I'm being 100% honest, I have absolutely no trust in Ron Rivera, and in particular Scott Turner. I just don't trust him. I don't think that he's a good play caller, and I've been beating that drum since he first got here. And I know this is going to sound like, revisionist. What's it called?
Revisionist history.
Revisionist history. But I from the day that Kevin O'Connell left, I was saying we shouldn't have let him go just off the strength of what he had built, the momentum he built with Dwayne Haskins. And if Ron coming in, if you were going to try to make him your guy, I thought you shouldn't have switched your coordinator for a rookie guy. And then Kevin O'Connell's 5-1 now. And I don't want to go back and touch too much on that, but Scott Turner was 0-7 coming into this locker room. And I just thought that was like a nepotism move, and it was just Ron being familiar with his guy. So I don't trust Ron's judgment as it pertains to hiring the right guys to put around him, not even necessarily talent on the field, but just like the coaches he puts around him. I feel like he just goes with what he's comfortable with, opposed to venturing out and going and actually finding the people that he should put in place to make this team better. But as it pertains to this season, I'm going to be honest with you. The only reason I say a win is a win, and we've seen it in the past, and you don't have to be an excellent team. Sometimes when you can just put wins together, it becomes contagious. And the Vikings may be a team that we may go out there and lose to, but if you go in there with a 3-game win streak, I can guarantee you those guys on that field have gained confidence. And now they're saying, hey, we can beat anybody. We won 3 straight. The same way you beat Tampa last year, and it began that 4-game win streak. And people didn't think you were going to go in there and beat the Raiders, but they did. The Raiders were a playoff team last year, and we beat them. And we weren't a great team. And believe it or not, if J.D. McKissick doesn't go down, if Logan Thomas doesn't go down, if we don't get hit with COVID, I think we go into that Dallas game with a little more confidence and with our core guys, and we have a better chance. Not to say we would beat Dallas at that point in time, because, again, they were a better team. But sometimes when you just gain confidence and you get the rolling, you may beat a better team. So I was with you, I would say last week, after the Bears game, and prior to that, I was screaming, yo, you got to tank. You got to get rid of this coach. You got to get rid of everybody, and you need to start trading pieces. Get what you can for Antonio Gibson because you don't know how to use him. Get what you can for Curtis Samuels because you don't know how to use him. Now, you won 2 games in a row. I'm not saying, hey, try to go to the Super Bowl. I don't think this is a Super Bowl team, but if you could piece some wins together, you just never know what can happen, especially.
But for what?
Here's the thing, AJ. Let's say they win. Let's say they win at the Colts next week, and Justin Jefferson gets hurt, and then you go into the Vikings game and you got to win, and then you play the Eagles, and that's a division game. Let's say you come out, and I don't think they have no chance at beating the Eagles, but let's just no. I'm just being honest though, because we've seen it. We've seen it in the NFL. We just seen the Panthers beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last weekend. Like it's a crazy league. And I know it sounds crazy, but really it's the NFL, dude, and literally anything can happen. And I feel like I don't trust the coaches, so I see where you're coming from. But if Scott was able to somehow put Taylor Heineke's legs into this game plan and just play off of that jet sweep and play off of some of that stuff he did in the red zone last week, which again I don't think he's capable of doing because I don't think he's that bright of a mind offensively. But if he were to become that and it just clicked and he just got real comfortable, you never know what could happen. I'm being serious now. Like Nick Foles won a Super Bowl, and I'm not saying this is a Super Bowl team. I'm not. I gotta keep emphasizing that. But what I'm saying is, dude, in this league, anything really is possible. So you can't. After you win 2 straight and you 3-4, you literally right back in it. We are locked in with like 7 different teams right now for that last spot. So you can't just say, hey, let's tank. You're 3-4. You right in the thick of things.
So before we pivot, right? You think if they beat the Colts and possibly beat the Vikings next week, they could roll into the playoffs?
If I'm being honest, I don't think this is a playoff team. I don't think it's a playoff team offensively. The way that the defense is playing, I like what I see. Again, I don't think, but again, those players in that locker room, when you roll up 2-3 wins, they think anything is possible. And honestly, it don't matter what the fans think at that point, because in that locker room, when that's your boy and he got your back, you see how they roll for Heineke. Heineke's not the greatest. They go hard for Slim. And I'm telling you, that means something, bro. Like, I know if people don't think that, but I seen it even just playing at the high school level. We didn't play for our coach. We played for each other. And I can guarantee you, dude, that can take you so far. You don't know when you got
That's why Mel was crying after every game, bro.
When you got a group that's on a mission, bro, I'm telling you, you can do things that you didn't even think you could do. That's how the Eagles beat the Patriots in that Super Bowl. They was just a group on a mission. And I'm telling you, when you got guys in that locker room that's thinking like that, anything is possible. I'm not saying that I don't think that they have the talent offensively. I don't think that they're going to do it, but it don't matter what I think. We've seen them beat Green Bay. I bet you ain't had them beating Green Bay last week, and they did it.
Oh, yeah, AJ had him smoke.
Hey, Montel talking that shit right now, man.
I don't have them winning another game. Like that's just how I see it. I mean, I feel like these past couple weeks been toss-ups.
AJ said that shit last week.
Bro. I don't have them winning another game, but I agree with Montel as far as like, you know, you can see that they're rallying behind, you know, Taylor Heineke. He's one of them. He's still some shit, but they rallying behind him. You feel me? It's like it's Taylor Heineke or Carson Wentz, and it's like he's more relatable to him, man. You know, it's easy to get behind a guy like that brings that energy. You see him on the sideline, standing on the bleachers, like saying "get up," like trying to get the fans into the game. You don't see that energy from Carson Wentz, so it's night and day. So I get it from that standpoint. But once them throws start turning into more picks, yeah, it's gonna be a different energy.
Hey, but AJ, let me ask you this:
Green Bay ain't take advantage of a lot of those opportunities, unfortunately.
But AJ, you mean to tell me that you don't want to see your man Ben St. Juste happy the way he was when he did that goddamn Canadian shuffle or whatever the hell he did in the locker room?
I mean, I want my guys to be happy, man, but I feel like how do I say it? I want them to be happy.
You want them to be happy while they're losing. That's basically it.
I want them to be happy. I want them to be happy in their outside life. How about that? On the field, they can have their individual successes, but honestly, that's the hard mix of being friends or working with guys that play for this team, right? Because it's also the team that I rooted for. But at some point, we have those realistic conversations, like, you know, y'all ain't going nowhere, right? You might want to start looking at vacation ideas, like where you want to take wifey, like where you want to take your girl, like you want to do something with your mom. Like, all right, January 5th, y'all can go to Cancun. Like, it's just real. Like, at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just real. Of course, I want to see them win, but I just don't believe in this team to do anything. And I just feel like the more that these kind of wins against these teams stack up, especially within the fan base and who we see, you know, making their commentary on Twitter, especially, even though most of the shit don't matter in real life, but you start to see them get hope. They start thinking, oh, Jack Del Rio is really not that bad of a coordinator. Oh, Scott Turner ain't really that bad. Taylor Heineke could still possibly be a future starter quarterback for this franchise or another team. You start seeing that a long time. Like, even look at this. Like, at this right now, teams don't really quit on Rivera. That's bullshit. He got fired. You feel me? In the middle of the season. Like, they quit on him. This team has given up on him already, and that we've seen. It's just sometimes these wins provide false hope or what the future has to bring. And I'm just thinking of the future.
It's definitely true.
Maybe we can ask Pete when he come on too. Like,
we were definitely. I had another topic, but I was like, we're just gonna stay on this until Pete get in here so we can talk to Pete about it. So it's definitely gonna be a discussion with Pete. But like my thing is too, like I said, I'm trying to, like, it's important, at least for me. I'm speaking for myself. Not Dre, not AJ, not Montel. Like, and matter of fact, I think Montel, you talked about it when we started the show. Like, I try my best to be as balanced as possible during the ebbs and flows of the season. But even with all that being said, like, you know what's good football and you know what's not good football. And I think the most important thing for people to do, look at the tape too. Like, and I know everybody don't want to do it, or there were some people I run into sometimes who say they don't have access to it. Shout out to AK. He say he ain't got access to the all 22, but he got all the answers about this damn team. Look, it's important for some people to look at, you got to look at this tape, bro. And And I think the reason why I brought that up specifically is because out of all the things that we've been talking about in this game, on this show in particular, Montel, I don't trust the defense. I seen the way they played against the Chicago Bears, where they gave up 7 points, and the Bears left about 20 more points on the field. And that was all off the back of Justin Fields. I haven't watched the Packers defense yet. I have 70 plays to go through on offense. Like that shit's hard and it's very time consuming for a person who has a day job. But talking to people who do cover the team just like I do and watch the film, same thing, same questions exist with the Packers game too. Like the Packers left some opportunities on the field, and that's not even talking about the stuff that you see on the TV version with the drops, and some of the missed opportunities from Aaron Rodgers and his playmakers. And I say all this to say, I don't think where is that comment? Yeah, here it is. To Anthony's point, I agree. I don't think the Colts are a good team right now. I also think that Washington is going to have another opportunity to continue looking the way that they're looking right now defensively, but also having a chance to stay to at least sustain or get a lead and try to sustain it against the Colts as well. That's like if you could get 21, 24 points against the Colts, you're winning. Like that's not a lot to ask for. And I think ultimately their test is going to come up against they may not even get the test against Minnesota. Their test may come against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's definitely going to be their test. But I don't know about Minnesota either. So I'm saying you have about 2 more weeks where you're talking about how good this team could be. And to Montel's point, wins can change a narrative from a confidence standpoint. That's 100% true. I 100% stand behind that. But until they get hit in the mouth one more time, because it's going to happen, how do they respond? They ain't get hit in the mouth yet. Like this win streak is really good for them. And the way that the defense is playing over the last few weeks, when you play against the Tennessee Titans, who ain't really had much except for Derrick Henry, the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, and then the Dallas Cowboys, who ain't have much with Cooper Rush, and you still found a way to get beat over the top a couple times. That Philadelphia Eagles team, they got dogs. And we seen that in the first game.
I don't feel like they that explosive offensively, though. And that's not me hating because they in the division. Philly.
The Eagles.
I don't feel like they're explosive offensively.
I feel like Philly could be more explosive offensively. It's just that they're really dedicated to running the ball so much. Like I don't know if you guys heard, but they defensively the first game. But I heard they were in the mix of trying to get Christian McCaffrey. Like
who?
The
Eagles.
Oh, they're not playing.
Like they all in, like, but they really want to focus on running the ball because I feel like AJ Brown should be having bigger numbers, especially with the talent that they have, the offensive line. They're really locked in on running the ball.
All right, so who has Philly beat that convinced you that they really the top dogs like they are?
I don't have them necessarily as a top dog.
Anybody.
I don't have anybody as a top dog in the league.
Yeah, they're not my top 5 team.
I believe in the Bills. I believe
Bills,
in the
Chiefs, Bengals was 3 of my top 5. I had the Buccaneers, but I think I'm dead wrong on that. And I forgot the other team. But Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs, specifically Bills and Chiefs in that order, and then the Bengals. Those are some guys where I'm like, those motherfuckers are legit. Like the Bengals had like this entire season, I think. I don't know about the game that they just played against the Falcons. I don't know, so I may be wrong now. But at one point, they didn't even allow a second half touchdown defensively. Like that's how good they were, bro. With that offense finally clicking, and you saw what they did against the Falcons that week, bro. Like they have always, they just trying to find their groove. But to your point, when you ask that question, I don't think the Eagles are a top 5 team, but I do think. No, matter of fact, I'm tripping. I did have them 4. And the Bucks was 5th. So yeah, they are in my top 5. I was trying to remember my power rankings off the top of my head, but yeah, they're up there. But I mean, that's really it. And in front of them is those 3 teams. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, bro. But to the point, like you said, you don't feel like they're that explosive. And I'm on the boat of thinking, at the end, like when you have Devontae Smith and an AJ Brown, bro, and then a Jalen Hurts. That's really all you need at some point. Obviously, that's excluding the offensive line, who we know is really good. But in terms of weapons, like those two can take the top off your defense, and then you got AJ Brown who can work all three levels. Like that's all you need. And I didn't even bring up Dallas Goedert. Like they got it, bro. They really do.
And I agree. I think they complement each other well. But if you, like you said, you don't trust the defense. But if I speak to that specifically, that game right there, if our offense does anything, we got a chance to beat Philly. If they do anything, if they put together 2 fucking drives, we could beat Philly. That's how I felt about that game. If you did anything offensively, your defense really gave you a shot to win that game. So I'm not saying
in the Cowboys game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If your offense did
Montel, hold on.
But
I feel like Dallas and Philly, they both chilled. They felt like they could score at will if they really
not
wanted
Dallas.
to.
Maybe the Eagles. I would give you that with the Eagles, not Dallas.
Dallas
I feel like they was chilling.
Dallas
and
called
that's
2
the
random
issue.
calls on interceptions.
But I think
it's gonna catch up to Philly though, because Philly has done that a lot in these games that they've been playing, where they'll get up and then they'll just chill, like they'll sit back. But some team is gonna catch up on their ass and it's not gonna be nice. It almost happened in the Minnesota game.
Their defense really
like they was chilling. But I just don't see. I don't really have a top dog in the NFL. I know who the good teams in my eyes are. Like Mual mentioned, the Chiefs, the Bills. You know, at the end of the day, the Bengals can score with anybody for real if they put their mind to it. But the rest of the league is kind of up and down. Like I don't really know what I'm getting out of Baltimore yet. I don't really know what I'm getting out of Philly. I don't trust Dallas offense enough. If they don't create turnovers and make plays on that side of the ball, I feel like anybody right now can get beat. I'm just hoping for a good Super Bowl or at least a conference championship.
Anthony, come on, bro. Like they ain't even. I don't even think they had a lead against the Eagles, bro. I know they cut it close at the end of the game, but they were down 17 when they cut that joint down to 3, bro. I can't.
Philly like 21-3, I think. If I'm not mistaken. They
hopped
out on Philly. The Lions hopped out on Philly.
Nah, I don't think so. I don't think that was the case.
Go check again, my friend.
No, I think
I'm about to say Philly went up 21-7.
I think the Jaguars went up big.
Jaguars got out. Yeah, they came back. They came back in that one. But let's go ahead and add the good man Pete Hailey to this conversation. I think it's perfect timing because I mean we can add them in and swing them in on this conversation with the Commanders with how we're feeling. And I listened to Pete throughout the week. I like the podcast of Washington Football Talk podcast, and I know you do your radio hit as well. So I have like a little cheat code in my head stashed about some of the stuff that you say already, but let the people know. I think when it comes to this team, I think the main conversation that we had today on this show was more about understanding who this team is after a 2-game win streak and trying to navigate, you know, what's the value. And AJ, correct me if I steer wrong in this comment, but what's the value of, and this is us being real, Pete. So I understand you got a duty as a journalist,
hey man,
but
Pete,
what's the value
out here, man?
I'm about to say what's the value of winning with this team? Knowing that it's not necessarily the best team right now, and understanding that it's 3 years into a Rivera tenure, that you kind of know that the chinks in the armor exist regardless of a win streak. I'm gonna hand the floor to you, and I know I didn't ask a specific question, but the topic of the conversation is more about where do you value these win streaks compared to like the end of the road, the big picture with this Commanders team.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, we'll get right to it. I mean, the team now, if you look at it right now versus what it was with Wentz when they were 1-4 and the defense was struggling, like I feel like it's now firmly in the middle class of the NFL, when before I thought this might be one of the worst teams in the league and they were awful in so many different stats. Now they've balanced out a little bit with Heineke, with the run game, and I think they can beat teams like the Falcons and this isn't that inspiring, but the Colts and the Browns coming up in later this season. So like I don't think they're up anywhere close to being able to compete with the Eagles, compete with the Cowboys. And that's where this difference lies, right? Like it's more, okay, we can celebrate that they're able to play these more competitive games and maybe we can start perhaps imagining a wild card berth if they win this Sunday in Indy. But at the same time, this is Ron Rivera's third year, and they're still completely inferior to the best teams in the NFL. They lost by double digits to the Eagles and the Cowboys in back-to-back weeks. So whatever the value of this win streak is, it's great for the short term. But if it ends up bringing this regime back and having Ron feeling like he's still on the right track, then it's going to, I think, ultimately be a kind of unfortunate win streak. And that sucks to hear as fans, that your team winning now might hurt them later. But I still wonder, like, look, a couple weeks ago, everybody wanted Ron to be fired. They hated watching this team play football. And after 2 wins, it's great. We're excited again. But damn, this might just end up bringing the whole group back together. And then in 2023, I'm joining this podcast and we're talking about the same issues that have plagued this franchise since Ron took over.
And that is my point, Pete. That's why I asked certain people that are on this panel with us right now, why are they so optimistic with these 2 little wins against 2 bad teams? Like, yeah, before the season started, we thought the Green Bay Packers would be better than what they were, what we seen Sunday. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't make sense to me why you would be so elated that this team is winning games when the bigger picture is they're still not a good coach team. They're not an organization that has, innovative individuals that can understand personnel. They don't draft well. And the more that they possibly stockpile these wins, even with poor play from Taylor Heineke and overcoming some of those mishaps, you're just back to square one next year. It'll just be October 25th, 2023. And we're talking about the same thing once again.
Yeah. Mual, you have the biggest water bottle I've ever seen in my entire life. I hope you're never
Hey, look, man, gotta stay healthy, my brother.
Yeah, you should never be dehydrated. AJ, I like the paintings behind you. They're very they look like they're really expensive. Oh my God, Hefe has a huge water bottle.
Don't let him trick you though, Pete. He that ain't the only thing he's drinking right now.
Yeah. I saw somebody drinking something else.
It looked like Kool-Aid or something he was drinking over there.
Yeah, he got that yak. That's what he got.
And again, I will not fault people for being excited about beating Aaron Rodgers at home and making that offense look really putrid. Like, that's cool. And should they beat the Colts this Sunday, which I think they should, being 4-4, I think you can start really looking ahead at a wild card berth. But I also think with the just proliferation of, like, all right, we need to stack draft picks and we're always looking so far ahead at the class of 2026 and this guy's going to be a free agent and Twitter has all these just like graphs of where a team really is trending, that there's another subset of fans who are just obsessed with the future. And I don't blame either side. It's really great to just turn on the TV for 3 hours on Sunday and root for the team to win football games, because that's what being a fan is about. But for the other group who's like, no, this stuff isn't actually going to help us in the end, I don't fault them either, because this franchise has been stuck for so long. And if they finish 8-9, then I think they're going to remain stuck. And just 14 days ago, it looked like we were heading towards some really major changes, perhaps at head coach. We knew quarterback, and maybe other things were going to change. And again, it's 1 win. So this conversation feels like it could be a little bit too early. But if they get to 6 or 7 wins on the season, 8 wins, then I see no reason why Rivera wouldn't be back. And the slow starts and the bad personnel choices, I think, would just continue.
But Pete, let me ask you this, and I asked the panel this beforehand. Do you think Ron could afford a tank type of season, as some fans kind of suggest he should do? Like, I guess suggesting that he should start Sam Howell right now and look at what he has. Like, can Ron survive a tank season and come back and then go and pick another quarterback that's supposed to be his?
I don't think so, and I don't know what the rest of the guys said, but that's another force at play here, is that Ron and these coaches and all these players too, like, they have to worry about their job security, their standing in the league. It's hard to tell a guy like Jeremy Reeves, who has been on the fringe of the NFL for 5-6 seasons, to, hey, why don't you chill out? Let's take this month off. We need to get the 3rd overall draft pick instead of the 5th one. For Ron, he's an older guy. I don't know how much longer he wants to coach. This has been an incredibly stressful job for him and all the stuff he has to handle. But I'd imagine he wouldn't be standing on the sidelines if he didn't want to have this still be his profession. So he wants to continue to be the boss of this team and have the power and cash his checks. So no, I don't think he could afford a tank season, because if you went 7 wins and a playoff berth, 7 wins, 10 losses, and then 5 wins and 12 losses, that's a really unfortunate trend. And while Dan Snyder maybe won't fire him because he doesn't want to maybe have to pay him, I still think this staff, these players, have no interest in tanking, and probably a lot of them wouldn't be on this team next year or in the future whenever that tanking pays off.
We got a question earlier in the day, Pete, and obviously Heineke has been around for a good amount of time now, a season and a half, essentially. But a win this Sunday would put him at, I think, the 8-8 mark in terms of record wise. But besides the record point, the attitude or the approach that the team takes with him, you've been in the locker room. I think it started this year. What has like been your observations between the two different quarterbacks? You know, there's been 2 starters here in Washington, obviously to this point, and Taylor and Carson. But what has been your observations in terms of like how they're interacting with their teammates, as far as you know? Then obviously knowing where Taylor has been and how the team has received him throughout his time here in Washington.
Carson, when he came here, I heard all the reports and talked to guys who were like, yeah, he could be kind of a sketchy leader and maybe he doesn't fit in well. I didn't see any evidence of that. I don't think he was very good as a player, but as a leader and as a person, I was impressed by it. Playing with a broken finger, trying to block linebackers. Like, I think he was really respected and did a good job of showing his new teammates that he was here about winning and about the business, like just was all in. So having said that though, like, and this could also be because Taylor was the backup and he was in the locker room more. Maybe I didn't see Carson in the locker room as much because he's got to maybe do more interviews or he wants to go home to his family. Taylor doesn't have kids, but there is a difference with how Taylor interacts with the guys versus how Carson does. And there are a bunch of reasons. Again, Taylor's the backup. Taylor's been here a couple of years. He knows these players more than Carson did, but Taylor is just like so damn cool. And he can go talk to the DBs and he can talk to the receivers. And when he walks to go get a Gatorade, he's stopping by and chatting with a practice squad dude who I barely even knew was on the roster. And he's like forging a relationship with. So Taylor has this unique ability to just be one of the guys. And Carson, again, he wasn't sitting by himself. Like, he was hanging out with Howell and Heineke, but I didn't see him necessarily work the room as much. And look, I don't know how much that makes a difference come 3rd and 7 in the fourth quarter of a game, but I do think Taylor has built up all this social equity of like, everybody knows him, they see him work, he's been around for a while, and that all helps. I think maybe not during the whistle, but I think before and after, like, this guy's really, really here for us. We want to fight for him. And Carson might have been able to get to that point, and maybe he still can down the road, but Taylor is just the coolest dude in the locker room, knows everyone, everybody loves him. And I do think there is more of a trust with him than with Carson.
I want to touch on that tanking point. I mean, I'm sorry, AJ, I'll let you go. I want to touch on that tanking point, like in the fans that are looking towards the future, because just in 2019, we were 3-13 and we had Chase Young as the number 2 overall pick. And here's my thing when it comes to tanking with the way that this organization has been built. Do you think that it's even like beneficial for this organization to, let's say, tank and just lose out and then get high draft picks? And because I think that's one of the things that one of the reasons we stayed like middle of the pack is because we always truly avoid the rebuild. And one of the things I don't want to see again is a Jay Gruden situation where Ron is here for 4 or 5 years and then it just implodes and then we're forced to rebuild. So do you even think that is beneficial for this organization, or do you view us as like the Lions, the Jets? And the Jets are doing good this year, but like it doesn't matter how many times we rebuild, we're always in a rebuild.
So the tanking, it's funny. It's everybody kind of, not everybody, but a lot of people look at it as a one-step process. You lose a bunch, you get the draft picks, and then you're good. Tanking is more of like a 2 or 3 step process because you have to lose a bunch and then you have to nail the draft picks. Just because you're picking 2nd or 3rd doesn't mean, oh, great, now we have 4 Pro Bowlers. Guys bust all over the place. You need to pause. You need to make sure that you draft the right people.
Yeah, that was a hella pause.
Hey, look, my eyes. I was like, hold on, no.
Yeah. No. We're gonna keep the point going here.
Yeah, keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Ignore it. Yep.
Yeah. So, and also like, I've kind of like lost my entire train of thought here. So you need to make sure Ron is able to choose the right guys, right? And he hasn't necessarily shown a proclivity for being the best drafter. So, oh, and this is where I was going. Like, also, if you tank and say he gets a great quarterback, Ron's in his 4th year next year. This quarterback's a rookie. Ron, maybe it doesn't go well for him. He gets fired, and then this quarterback has a whole new coach, a whole new system to learn. That's what happened with Jay and then Ron with Haskins. And Haskins had his fair share of issues, but it's not easy for a quarterback to be young, coming to the NFL. His head's moving all over the place. He's looking around. He has no idea what's going on. He has to learn this new system. He finally gets it down, and then boom, year 2 happens. Totally new regime, new leadership, new situation. Hey, screw that playbook you just spent your whole first year of the NFL learning. Here's a new one, all this new terminology. And that's when it really compounds. And that's how you get into these 10 and 15-year tailspins when the two timelines of the coaches and the players you're building around don't really match up. So, like, tanking can work, and it can work for anybody in the NFL. It can work for anybody in sports. But it's not just, oh, we suck, now we're going to be good in 3 years. There's so many other factors. And I wouldn't want it to really happen unless you can have a totally clear reset with you lose a bunch, then you have a new coach who has the fresh 3 or 4 year run instead of Ron, who could be fired at any moment.
So, Pete, let me ask you this. With, I think it's week 8 now? We're going into week 8. How do you feel about this team overall and the future? Do you expect Ron to possibly be here next year? Do you expect Scott Turner to still be here? Do you expect Jack Del Rio to still be here? I don't want to touch about the ownership stuff. I don't really – there's nothing that we can do on our end to change that. And that doesn't even mean that a better owner could come in. You just never really know. But in regards to the Washington Commanders right now, week 8, do you feel that the likelihood of Ron Rivera returning is within the foreseeable future or not?
I think it is. And still, they're 3 and 4.
Yikes!
So there's still 11 games, 10 games. So there's so much that can happen. And remember, like I said, 2 weeks ago, everybody was ready for the season to be over so they could fire this entire staff and get rid of 80% of the players. So things can change really quickly. But I think with Heineke in there, while he's still going to have his games, I could see him playing against the Cowboys and being totally overmatched and that being a really ugly game. But I still think he makes them more competitive in these middle tier games than Carson was. I really didn't see any sort of upward trajectory with Carson. They had 6 weeks to figure out a playbook or a section of plays or a style that worked for him, and it wasn't happening. With Taylor, I think it makes them more of a regular team who's going to win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose 2, win 2, and get to a point where they're just sort of around 500. And I don't think the flame out potential is there with him. The style they're going to play, running the ball, trying to be really good with their special teams, that's going to keep a lot of games close. So, yes, I do think Ron will be back. Scott got an extension this offseason, and he's done some good things this year. He, again, has never really had the quarterback. Eventually, you get tired of hearing that excuse, even though it's a very valid one. You'd like to see coaches do more with what they have instead of waiting for the top line of talent. But I don't know about Del Rio. I've always been of the mind that, like, he's on a bit of a different wavelength than a lot of these other coaches. I don't know what his end goal is. Like, I doubt he's working towards being another head coach. I'm not sure. He's kind of in that older age range of Ron, so I don't know what his end game is. But I think I see a lot of these guys coming back right now, and after a couple wins, it's funny to say that, but again, I'm just trying to predict the rest of the season, and I think it's going to be a fine season, and there's not going to be any sort of bottoming out that requires a lot of major changes.
Yeah, I've always hated the Scott Turner hasn't had his quarterback saying, because if you just look at the play calling and the art of calling plays, he does not have it remotely at all. I don't care who was playing quarterback. It could be Jesus Christ back there at quarterback. He is not going to call the right plays. Like, so it's just funny to me. And I brought it up on our podcast. Like, it was weird that in March that Scott Turner got an extension. And I'm like, what has he done to even prove worthy of an extension?
Very
like,
weird.
Is Washington just giving – there's no salary cap on coaching staffs, but are they just giving away free money? Because that makes no sense to me at all. Like, I feel like any one of us could call better plays than Scott Turner at this point.
Yeah, I don't know what your
I'll
offensive
take the
play calling
check.
is like, AJ.
Yeah.
I'd like to see. But maybe you and Jesus Christ could really form a talented offense there. That'd be a really good combination.
Hey man, I tell you, we be the #1 offense in the league.
Um, yeah, the Turner extension, I hear you, was a little bit odd and out of nowhere. I think maybe it was more to just compensate him more fairly, as opposed to like tack on like 3 more years to his deal and keep him around for a long time. But in terms of the quarterback excuse, it's just it's again, it's super valid. Like, of course, you want to have a really good quarterback, and this team's worked through a bunch, but I haven't seen a ton of evidence of this coaching staff being able to elevate and make guys better. And there are plenty of coaches around the league. Do you think Brian Dable really wants Daniel Jones? No, they didn't extend him, but he's able to make Daniel Jones a functional player and make that team work. So I've never thought that this was like a really well designed coaching staff with a lot of creative thinking. I think they have their way of doing things, and they might try and cram in the players into that strategy, into that way of operating. So, yeah, and this all just goes back to the central question. Something I've been thinking a lot about is, and you guys brought it up at the beginning of this, is any success right now worth having to then just re-up everything in the future? And it's the main crux of what's happening with the Commanders, I'd say, right in this moment.
Yeah. Wait, was you about to talk, Montel?
Yeah,
We can close out with the. I got 2 questions on my side, but go ahead.
my question isn't going to be hard. I want you to play GM for me right fast, Pete. And
Okay.
based off how the season is going right now, what you've seen in the past, as of today, now I want to say if the season implodes, but I think that's too easy. As of today, on October 25th, 2022, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. All you have is what has happened thus far and what's happened in the past. And I think a lot of fans have answers to this as it pertains to the coaching staff next year. And this is something we spoke on before you even got on, because I always thought that O'Connell should have stayed. And again, that's not revisionist history. We spoke about that.
Mm-hmm.
From the day that he left, I said he should still be here. If you had your choice, who leaves next year? And if anybody stays, who stays? As it pertains strictly to coaching.
Yeah, it's never fun to like call for guys' jobs, but I think of pretty much a clean sweep would maybe benefit this team. And 3 years is a long time in the NFL these days to fix the direction of a franchise. And sure, in Cincinnati, Zach Taylor's been propped up by Joe Burrow, but he got that team into the Super Bowl a couple years after it was picking #1 overall, the same year that the Commanders got Chase. Dable, he's the hot name right now. Same with Robert Saleh. They're doing things with quarterbacks that are not very developed, not very smart, not very productive, but they have other things working. And I think you can tell pretty quickly whether a group of guys has it or not. And we gave Ron that first year was crazy with his cancer battle and with the pandemic and just having to come in and deal with all that. And coaching in Washington is so different than any other city because of Dan and because of how there's always something going wrong. So it's a really tough place to judge somebody. And I think Ron has a lot of good qualities in terms of being a leader and having integrity and those things. But in the X's and O's, the roster construction, it just hasn't been satisfactory enough in my mind. So if I was the GM in some alternate reality, I would try and start over next year as soon as possible, no matter what really happens this year. Because even if they somehow do make the playoffs, I don't think it's going to be as a contender. And you've had 3 years. And while it's admirable to have Washington flatline kind of in the middle because other coaches haven't, I want to see someone else now take that and move on into now we can actually start being excited about games against the Eagles as opposed to covering our eyes and hoping it's not a 3-touchdown blow.
So for me, my two things is actually is one question, just 2 different parts. What is the one thing that you're at this point in the season that you're most confident in? And then it could be player, unit, coach, whatever. And then the same thing is what are one thing that you're least confident in? Again, player, coach, unit, whatever.
Most confident in the defensive line, and they're hopefully going to get Chase back soon. Not that Chase is going to be a 10-sack guy the rest of the year. I think he has a lot to prove both in health and in execution and production off the edge. because last year he was healthy for 9 games and did next to nothing. But that'll be another guy to have. And I really like the depth behind him. I was skeptical about James Smith-Williams and Casey Hill and F.A. Obata, but they've all had really good moments, and Montez has turned it on the past couple weeks. And, of course, John and Duran in the middle are playing like absolute ballers. So that D-line is one I've been critical of in recent years. They're finally living up to the hype and maybe performing even past it. So I love what's going on there. The unit, player, whatever I'm least confident in, I think the linebackers have been a little bit better. I'm iffy on the secondary still. I think this has been a group that's definitely tightened up since William Jackson III was pushed out of the rotation. They got Benjamin St-Juste outside, but I do also recognize they played some pretty weak opponents with passing games. Tannehill and those receivers, Justin Fields. I mean, he looked great last night, but that was a lot of it was running and those receivers. And then the Aaron Rodgers we saw on Sunday is not the Aaron Rodgers I'm used to seeing, and those receivers are a bunch of nobodies. So I think some of this improved play has been the result of opponents who are just really, really bad. And I think the secondary could be exposed. I love St-Juste, love Curl. I think McCain is pretty solid with communication, but he's not a major difference maker in terms of ball skills. And while Kendall Fuller is really smart, I think he's a guy who we've seen be scorched by Devontae Smith, like the really good receiver. So I'm anxious to see how they handle their next round against the Eagles, their next one against the Cowboys, and then that Vikings receiving core. I could see Jefferson having a big game. So love the D-line. Still worried about what the secondary can do ultimately.
Pete, man, appreciate you coming through today, man. It was definitely a pleasure to have you on. First time a Trap or Die podcast. I want to give you the floor just to this is Plug Talk, just to let everybody know where they can find you, read from you, hear from you, anything and everything that you want the people to know about you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun. I'll definitely hop on again. In the meantime, follow me at Pete Hailey, NBCS Hailey. I always say I was born to cover this team because Hailey is spelled Hail instead of Hal. I think it was a sign from Jesus, AJ's quarterback there before he started playing quarterback. Blessed me with this job. So follow me there on Twitter. And then we have the podcast, Washington Football Talk. Terrible name, but it's a great show. We cover everything all the time. So those are the 2 places I'd recommend heading to.
Hail to Pete.
Yep. Hail to Pete. Hail to Pete. Look, that's how we're gonna close things out over here. Next up, man, Commanders morning show tomorrow morning. The fellas be back Thursday to preview the Commanders and the Indianapolis Colts. Y'all take care. Enjoy y'all night. Enjoy y'all day whenever y'all listening. All that good stuff. Peace.
All right, man. Appreciate you, Pete.
Yes, sir.